Boy, do I love reviewing Christmas horror movies. A Christmas Horror Story is a movie I bought 2 years ago. Never got around to reviewing it. Finally, here we go. A Christmas Horror Story. Is it good? Let's find out. A Christmas Horror Story stars William Shatner, Zoe DeGrand Mason, and is directed by Grant Harvey, Stephen Hoban, and Brett Sullivan. What's up, guys? If you look up there, that is A Christmas Horror Story. This Blu-ray is 2 years old, still had the plastic wrap on it. Cracked it open last night, watched it. Good friend Lindsay from Mother Mayhem said she really enjoys this one. She wanted to find out my thoughts, and I really enjoyed it. I'll go ahead and cut to the chase. Let me throw this back up there. But this is one of those anthology horror films, like Trick or Treat. So I'm looking forward to getting into this. First things first, though, quick Patreon shout out to one of my newest patrons, Taryn. This one is for you. Also, this t-shirt was created by another one of my patrons, Dead Jester Circus. He created a design that has my ranking that I had in the military when I retired. I was a Master Sergeant in the Air Force, and this is just a badass design. If you want one of these, you can go to the Drumdums store and you can get one. I'll put a link right here. And yeah, I love this t-shirt. It's badass. Thank you, Dead Jester Circus, who also has a channel of his own. Be sure to check that out. I'll put a card for his channel right here too as well. And he's a big horror fan like you and me. Okay, and let me just say, I think the big reason why I put off reviewing this movie for so long is because of the cover. I always say, like, the worst horror movies have the best covers. That cover is really badass. It's so badass that I thought there's no way this movie could be good, because it's badass, but it's also ridiculous looking. You got Krampus and Santa Claus going at it there. So I was like, how good could this movie be? You know, and I think that's part of the reason why I avoided it. But fortunately, you know, it knows what it is. It doesn't take itself way too seriously. It really honors the holiday of Christmas, and it really has a lot of blood and guts in it, which is great for people like you and me who love Christmas horror movies. I've even said that I think I prefer Christmas horror movies over just regular horror movies. The previous Scream stream we did was all about Christmas movies, and there's just something about them. I don't know what it is, but like at face value, if it's a Christmas horror movie, then it already has my foot in the door, even though there's a lot that I haven't seen yet. But yeah, it's just an irresistible genre. There are a lot of bad ones out there, though. But this one is an anthology, and I like all the stories in this one. It's made up of 4 stories. One of the stories involves Santa Claus, and you know, his elves, they go awry. They become zombie elves. You know, there's like an accident that happens, and then all of a sudden they become zombies. And I think this is the bloodiest section of the story, but it's really fun, actually. And I dig the look of Santa in this segment, because he looks like a Viking, like one of those Viking Santas. He's a badass, you know, he's a badass Santa, and you buy it. You buy it by the way he looks. But if you like good zombie action where the zombies are like really fast runners, that's what this one is. You know, you got all these little dwarf zombies, elf zombies, and they're just coming at Santa, and they're not holding back whatsoever. And it gets really damn bloody, actually. Then the second story, you got this family, they trespass because they want to get a Christmas tree. Their son ends up missing. And so once they get back, they set up the tree. It really gets pretty damn dark. The son starts acting really weird, and immediately we find out that this kid might not be what we think he is. I won't give away everything about that story, but let me just say, there are some scenes in this section where you're like, that is some really jacked up stuff right there. And once it gets to the scene, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It made me really open my eyes twice as big. But this deals with one of those stories in life where the children turn on us. You know, imagine your own children turning on you. That's kind of what this one deals with, and it gets pretty damn crazy. Now, the third and the fourth stories, I think, are my favorites, actually, even though I love all of them. The third one deals with Krampus. And let me just say right off the bat, I think if Krampus, the actual movie, was dealt with like this Krampus story, I would have been much happier, because I wanted Krampus, the movie, I think it was 2015 or 16 this movie came out, I wanted it to be leaning more towards the horror genre. And there is definitely some horror in there, but it's light horror. Whereas this It's full-on horror. You know, Krampus, he is like the yin to Santa Claus's yang. If you are bad, then he comes after you, and that's what happens. This family, later in the segment, they all talk about the times in their lives where they were screwed up. You know, you got the one daughter, she's a kleptomaniac. Just little things like that. And so this is like fodder for Krampus. And so once Krampus does come after them, I found it really interesting, really entertaining, and pretty damn bloody. Just to jump into a con for this section, I think there are moments where Krampus looks kind of silly because he's lit, I guess, way too much. And then there's sometimes where he's like in the woods and he looks pretty damn dark and creepy, and I loved the way he looked in the darker segments. And then the last segment actually is involving these teens at this school, and they get trapped in this school at the I guess the lower levels. And I guess they're investigating because the year before there were some killings that happened. And this story I like because it deals more with like possession, but in like the best way actually. You know, they're investigating the case. It's really freaking cold down there. And then you start getting those elements of paranoia, you know, kind of like The Thing. And it also deals with not knowing who you can trust. One of the characters gets possessed by a ghost that's in this thing, and then she starts acting really wild, and it brings up some pretty interesting scenarios actually. Now, as far as any cons, I touched on the Krampus one. Really, you know, there are moments of B-movie style in this movie, I guess you could say. They'll pop right out at you, but for the most part, I think this is handled really well from a production standpoint. I expected this to be like full-on B-movie horror, but you know, the cinematography looks great throughout the whole thing. You know, all the violence is handled really well, and I actually dug this. This was a really nice surprise. And by the way, William Shatner kind of threads the needle throughout all these stories. You know, he's this DJ, kind of like Stevie Wayne in The Fog, and he's you know, just there to kind of guide us through the whole thing. And then also, I have to mention that twist at the end is genius. I loved the twist at the end of this movie, and I think you will too. So for that, I'm going to give this a purchase worthy, actually, a high purchase worthy. It's one that I will definitely watch every year. You know, there's a few Christmas movies that I love to watch every December. This will go in my list, actually. You know, I could put it right there next to Black Christmas. It's not as good as Black Christmas, don't get me wrong, but it's still really fun. So anyway, post in the comments your thoughts on a Christmas horror story. Have you seen it? Let me know. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day, and on Fridays we do Free For All Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.